I'd like to thank Mrs. O'Reilly and John Green, author of Looking for Alaska, for introducing me to the joys of oral sex, smoking, and drinking. I now participate in all of these activities, but I do prefer a mango-flavored Juul over a cig. All joking aside, the claim that reading this book makes students participate in these activities is absolutely absurd. Looking for Alaska belongs in the English classroom. As students, we are asked to consider whether Looking for Alaska has literary merit. When I first heard this, I was like, what is literary merit? So I did some research and I found this guy, Walter Van Tilburg Clark, and he was an American novelist who died about 50 years ago. Clark said that literary merit is the power to endure. Aside from the test of durability, I think the test of literary merit must be, to my mind, the sincerity of the writer. Literary merit also has to do with whether the characters in the book are well developed and the themes and lessons that the book teaches are important. There are some difficult but important themes that are discussed in this book. And in almost every case, every bad decision is countered with a consequence. You can tell that John Green is not trying to encourage teenagers to make these bad decisions. Coming from a teenager, some of our elders just don't understand that life happens. Teenagers make bad impulse decisions almost every day. Not discussing these choices is the real problem. By discussing these issues that are faced by the characters in the book, we can better understand how to deal with these situations in our daily lives. The characters in this story smoke and drink. John Green is definitely not encouraging these characters or anyone to participate in these type of activities. He shows the consequences of these actions. Pudge, the main character, says, "No screaming, my head hurts," and it did. I could feel last night's wine in my throat, and my head throbbed like it had the morning after my concussion. My mouth tasted like a skunk had crawled into my throat and died. That quote there sure does not make me want to drink, and it's not going to make me think, wow, I want to get drunk now. This sounds like an absolutely amazing experience. Like, no. Then there's the fact that the characters smoke. John Green counters this with any time that Pudge, the main character, has to run anywhere, from across the common area to long distances running from his principal. Quote, Pudge says, "I ran like a cheetah." Well, a cheetah that smoked too much. Breath heaving, I wondered if I could do this for 30 minutes. From the perspective of a runner, the idea of not being able to run for more than 30 minutes would be awful. And I see people smoking almost every day in public, but just because I see them, that doesn't make me want to smoke. The characters in Looking for Alaska are really well developed. You could tell that Mr. Green really cared about what he was writing. Author Christina Hartman says that it's important to know the difference between a fictional character that lives, breathes, and behaves as a real person and a drone that appears human but only has machinery underneath. Mr. Green's characters are definitely well developed. When you're reading the story, you don't question their realness. You're living in the character's world and you're living in their plot. It's hard to tell if Looking for Alaska will endure. It was only published 14 years ago, but other than changing cigarettes to Juuls, the topics are still relevant to today's teenagers. For a book to have literary merit, it has to have important themes, and one of the important themes in Looking for Alaska is suicide. This is a pressing question throughout the book and in real life. Did Alaska Young kill herself, or was the crash a freak accident? Suicide is the third leading cause of death in teens. It's important to have discussions about teen suicide in an educational setting. Compared to other books that are read in an honors English 10 classroom, Looking for Alaska is not a hard read. The characters are likable and you can follow their story. And if you care enough, you're not going to fall asleep. There may not be big words, but there are difficult questions and themes that the characters are trying to answer throughout the book. Like, how does one get out of this labyrinth of suffering? This question really provokes thought and makes the reader ask, like, what happens to a person when they die? Where do they actually go? The reader is presented with these situations, and sometimes, especially in the case of how did Alaska Young really die, you have to answer the questions on your own. Looking for Alaska has literary merit and should be read in classrooms. The book covers complex topics. If you said the book should be removed from classrooms, I ask, did you really read the book? Or maybe you just don't want to understand teenagers and the realities we face.